in the orientation class who were music professors, and one of them was Dr. Bill Grimes. And so it's been my pleasure to know Bill for 24 years.
1980.
Well, 12 years.
You just had to mention the year.
That's okay.
It was a very different place back then.
It was a different place, and it's become a wonderful place in part because Bill Grimes is here, thank goodness. Initially he served as both the classical-based professor and the jazz professor, on campus, and that program has actually grown considerably into a master's program, thank goodness for that also. Bill is the E and D White professor of jazz studies, I believe. Well, he's a professor of that also, and he's been called a formidable bassist, and I would call him a formidable colleague, a formidable human being, and here he is to speak to us about music and social
change, social justice, whatever.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. I thought I would talk for a little while, read some lyrics, be clever, and then we can maybe try to answer the big question that I'm going to pose, which I'll get to in a minute. So let me just start by saying, oh, by the way, this topic is something that we're investigating at the Manship School of Communication, Mass Communication. Jack Hamilton and Adrian Moore are putting together, and we're working on finding scholars to participate in a symposium, probably spring of 2010, 2011, where we would discuss this very topic. And it basically is music a pipeline for social change, social and political change? There are many sides of the story. So I start by saying Jimmy Maxwell, who was a noted trumpet player for Benny Goodman, expressed an opinion that music should do one of three things. It should make you want to dance, sing, or pray. But is all it can or should do? No one doubts the power of music to affect our lives, in the beer we buy, to the perfumes we wear, to our emotional reactions and behaviors. Music is a versatile means of communication, often transcending language barriers and skirting traditional roadblocks. If music can affect our psyches, if it can affect the choices we make in entertainment and products and religion, then can it also affect the way we vote? Is music a means for political change? Is it a pipeline for influencing public opinion? Or is music simply one more color on the palette of changing the world? Satirical songwriter, and one of my favorites, Tom Lehrer states, "I don't think this kind of thing has an impact on the unconverted, frankly. It's not even preaching to the converted, it's titillating the converted. I'm fond of quoting," he's still speaking, "I'm fond of quoting Peter Cook, who talked about the satirical Berlin cabarets of the 1930s, which did so much to stop the rise of Hitler and prevent the Second World War." Equally important, Lehrer feels that it is not possible to induce insightful soul-searching through humor. To make listeners laugh, they have to be somehow insulated and believe that the target is other people, not them. It's mostly about them, whoever the them are. His favorite example of this is a song called, and it's so nice to look at people the same age as I am because the frame of reference is really great. This afternoon I'm going to teach 350 undergraduates who think the Little Rock Nine was a rock band. So thank you for understanding my frame of reference. His favorite was a song called Werner von Braun, which is about the divorce of ethics from science. Over the years, Lehrer has been amused at the number of scientists who have enjoyed the song without realizing it was about them. Lehrer himself hid behind this insulation when he was writing songs. I'm thinking it's the other guy. I'm thinking I'm a good, wonderful person. I don't pollute the water. There's always some rationalization about it that lets you out. So for those of you, everybody in here I'm sure knows who Werner von Braun was, but you may not know the song that Tom Lehrer wrote. Let me just read, you know it. It's hysterical. And I will not sing. Well, there's no piano. "Gather round while I sing you of Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience. Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmazi," says Werner von Braun. "Don't say that he's hypocritical, say rather that he's apolitical. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Some have harsh words for this man of renown, but some think our attitude should be one of gratitude, like the widows and cripples in old London town who owe their large pensions to Werner von Braun. You too may be a big hero once you've learned to count backwards to 0. In German or English, I know how to count down, and I'm learning Chinese, says Werner von Braun. There's a great satirical, parody, funny song, and didn't change a thing about the science program in Huntsville, Alabama, which von Braun led. And going back to that, it's the divorce of ethics from science. It's important to remember. Layer, in fact, has a certain amount of disdain for songs and songwriters that aspire to change the world. In other words, 60s era political folk. In his earlier recordings, he makes fun only of the poor rhyming and grammar of folk songs. His introduction to Irish Ballad, for example, begins with, "Now I'd like to turn to the folk song, which has become in recent years a particularly fashionable form of idiocy among the self-styled intellectual." He goes on to describe the song as having a sort of idiotic refrain running through interminable verses. This song, though, does differ strikingly from the genuine folk ballad in that the words which are supposed to rhyme actually do. And then he says, "One of the more important aspects of public folk singing is audience participation, so if any of you feel like joining in, I'd appreciate it if you would leave." Now from Kim Rule, let's leave Layer for a moment and go to Kim Rule, who's a singer-songwriter, who wrote about a new generation of protest singers. Where our parents' generation seemed to scroll through history, soundtracked by an endless array of political songs and protest singers, he's talking about our generation. My generation has gotten sidetracked by reality television, the internet, the blogosphere, and electronic music. Despite the overwhelmingly shared opinion among singer-songwriters that the time for change is near, there seems to be a stark absence of protest song available in comparison to the similar events of 40 years ago. Nonetheless, a few artists persevere, and I say good for them. Dan Byrne has said, while some will remark that protest singers only preach to the choir, sometimes the choir needs a little preaching. Protest songs are important for reminding us that we don't exist in a bubble, that there are entire communities out there who feel the same way we do, who are trying, as the song says, to keep their eyes on the prize and hold on. Protest music has never directly resulted in legislation that changed the world, but it's hard to believe that civil rights would have been won without folks like Pete Seeger heading to the South and teaching people to sing together, "We Shall Overcome." Songs that can make the hair on the back of your neck stand up because of the degree to which they resonate with your personal will can be extraordinary motivators. It is in this way that protest music affects change. So perhaps not through legislation, but perhaps through galvanization, if that's a word, I just made up a word. Galvanizing maybe is better, the will of people who believe the same way. So, I've got a couple of subtopics to talk about. One is some historical things that are pretty important. I want to talk about propaganda, protest song, or patriotic anthem, which is it? I want to talk about censorship and suppression, and I want to talk about music as a political pawn.